The three worst women in the Bible. Someone is described worst when the person lacks virtue, good morals or character. Such a person can also be described as notorious or wicked. We shall be considering some women in the Bible who are notorious, wicked and moral. 1. Athaliah. Her records can be found in 2 Kings chapter 11 and 2 Chronicles chapter 24. Athaliah was queen of Judah and the only female monarch to sit on David's throne in biblical history. Athaliah, the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel. She married Jehoram, the eldest son of Judah's king, Jehoshaphat. Her time as queen is nestled amid centuries of evil monarchs who reigned over Judah and Israel. Athaliah rivaled the wicked of the kings who came before and after her. Athaliah as husband was king of Judah until his death. Unlike his father, Jehoram was a wicked king. Athaliah's son Ahaziah, at the age of 22, ascended to the throne and proved himself just as evil as his father. Ahaziah served as king of Judah for less than 1 year. He was assassinated along with Israel's ailing king Joram. Their assassin was Jehu, who was originally a commander in King Ahab's army. Jehu's missions of ending Ahab's dynasty included putting Jezebel and her sons to death. Ahaziah happened to be visiting Joram when Jehu arrived to assassinate Joram, and Ahaziah was killed too. When Athaliah received word that her son was dead, she seized the opportunity to usurp the throne by murdering Ahaziah's sons, her own grandsons, this eradicating the entire royal family so she could take the throne. Unknown to Athaliah, a single grandchild escaped the massacre. Jehosheba, the baby's aunt and the wife of the high priest Jehoiada, took the infant Joash and hid him and his nurse in a bedroom. Joash was later smuggled out of the castle and taken to the temple, where he remained hidden for 6 years, while Queen Athaliah reigned over the land. Queen Athaliah did what was evil in the sight of God. She used her influence to further establish Baal worship in Judah, installing priests and building altars for her idol on the very temple of the Lord. In this way, Athaliah followed the footsteps of Mother Jezebel. After Athaliah had reigned 6 years, the high priest Jehoiada set guards around the temple and publicly crowned the young Joash as the rightful king. As the new king was anointed, the people clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" Queen Athaliah heard the commotion, realized what was happening, and ran out of the palace shouting, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada commanded the troops to capture Athaliah and execute her, and so they killed the queen where the horses enter the palace grounds. In verse 16, 7-year-old King Joash, under the direction of the faithful high priest, tore down the temple of Baal, smashed the altars and images of Baal, and killed the priest of Baal. And all the people of land rejoiced, and the city was calm, because Queen Athaliah was slain in verse 20. 2. Herodias in the Bible is notorious for being the woman who desired John the Baptist's head on a platter. She was the unlawful wife of the tetrarch Herod Antipas, and had formerly been the wife of Herod's brother, Philip. Herodias is the feminine form of Herod, which functions somewhat as a title for members of the Herodian dynasty. Historians indicate that Herod Antipas and Herodian had an affair of sorts, while her husband Philip was visiting Rome. Herodian then agreed to leave her husband in order to become Herod Antipas's wife. The new marriage was not honorable, and John the Baptist publicly denounced their adultery in Matthew 14:4. Herodian had a grudge against John and wanted him to be executed in Mark 6:19. Herod put John in prison for Herodian's sake. In Matthew 16:3, Herod did not put him to death because he was afraid of people who believed John was a prophet. In Matthew 14:5, Herod also seems to believe that John was a righteous man, and though greatly puzzled by the thing John said, liked to listen to him in Matthew 6:20. Finally, the time came for Herodian to exact her revenge on John. During Herod's birthday celebration in Matthew 6:21, Herodian's daughter, who was a great dancer, danced for the king and his guests. She pleased Herod so much that he promised the girl whatever she asked. After consulting with her mother, the girl asked for John the Baptist's head on a platter, Matthew 14:8. Herod was sorry and distressed over being put in this quandary, but because of his vow and the guests, Herod had John beheaded in prison in verse 20. The prophet's head was brought to the daughter of Herodian, who gave it to her mother in verse 11. The Bible did not tell us much about Herodian, but her action recorded in the Bible shows her to be an immoral, bitter, and manipulative woman. John the Baptist was right to warn the Tetrarch and his wife of their wicked ways. Herodian hardened her heart and plotted. John's execution, as if silencing the truth-teller, could remove her guilt. In this way, Herodian became like Jezebel, who stridently opposed Elijah, in whose power and spirits John had come. Luke 1:17, 1 King 19:2, 3. Jezebel. Jezebel was the wife of King Ahab, who ruled the kingdom of Israel by opposing the worship of the Hebrew God, Yahweh, neglecting the right and well-being of her subjects, and challenging the great prophets Elijah and Elisha. She prompted the internal conflict that plagued Israel for decades. Jezebel was known as a wicked and notorious queen. Jezebel influenced her husband to worship Baal, a natural god. As a woman seeking more power, she sought to destroy those who questioned her, and most of the prophets of God were murdered at her request. These evil and tyrannical works motivated the righteous vengeance of Elijah, who correctly predicted the encounter of a severe drought as divine retribution against Jezebel. Elijah later had the Baal priest killed after they had failed in a contest with him to see which god would answer their prayers to inflame a bull offering, Baal or Yahweh. When Jezebel heard of the killing, she furiously vowed to have Elijah killed, forcing him to flee for his life, in 1 King 18:19-20. Another cruel act credited to Jezebel is written in the book of 1 King 21:5-6. Next to Ahab's dwelling was a vineyard, which he envied and desired. It was owned by a civilian, Naboth of Jezreel. When Naboth declined to part with his vineyard as the inheritance of my father, Jezebel falsely accused him of cursing God and the king, which resulted in Naboth's death by stoning. Elijah faced Naboth on the vineyard, prophesying that he and all his successors would be slain and that dogs would devour Jezebel. Some years after Ahab died in fighting with the Syrians, and Jezebel continued on for nearly 10 years. Elijah the prophet continued the determination to end Baal worship. He anointed a militant leader named Jehu to be king of Israel, an older man that prompted civil war as Joram, Jezebel's son, who ruled as of that time, was killed, and his place was taken as ruler of Israel. Jehu proceeded to kill Jezebel. Jezebel heard this and decorated herself in fancy clothing for the occasion. Looking down from the window, she mocked him, and Jehu commanded her eunuchs to toss her out of the window. They obeyed, and Jezebel died. After her fall and death, Jehu ordered that she be buried as a king's daughter. However, it was found that dogs had eaten most of her body, just as Elijah had predicted. Jezebel has come to be recognized as a model of wicked woman, embodying the characteristics of cruelty, greed, and vanity. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more.